Welcome back to another episode of the Remote No Pressure Podcast, Bill.
Hey, good to be back.
In the cloud.
Up in the sky.
The sky.
Up
from
in
the
the sky.
sky. You're downloading from the sky. I was listening back to last week's episode because I was traveling and stuff this week, and I was like, I'm gonna listen to some of the episodes. Last week's episode, our intro was so cheesy. I was like,
it was a later recorded episode too.
It was, and what we noticed is that when we record at night,
we're less on our game.
we are.
Yes.
We are. It seems like in the morning, like we're recording right now.
Yep.
Kind of mid-morning though.
Yeah.
It seems like we're more on point.
Yep. I've got a lot more coffee in me right now.
Is that why you think it is?
I think so.
Now you've always
I'm
been
more caffeinated. Yeah.
You've always been a big coffee guy.
Yeah.
That's pretty much your bread and butter.
Yeah.
Well,
More coffee and butter.
Coffee and butter. Yeah. Do you eat breakfast at all usually?
I
or
don't.
No,
Nope.
it's always
Just coffee.
and butter.
Yep.
Yep. That's
Well,
awesome.
like I didn't have one today. Like the coffee and butter concoction I usually do. I just did straight coffee all day.
Straight coffee.
Mhm. Probably about a pot.
A pot.
I don't
a whole
know.
pot.
Well, at least 3 Keurigs and a full thing of my French press. So
Okay.
about a pot.
Now you got a new fly rig set up, didn't you?
I did.
What did you get again?
Got a Reddington 3-weight.
How do you like it?
Oh, I love it. Yeah. Yesterday was the first time I've gotten a chance to get it on the water, and took it down to the Gun Lake area, Yankee Springs, and tried it. And I'm like, I wasn't thrilled with it yet because I had too much tippet on. Wasn't getting a good reaction. I was sitting in my kayak too, so out in the middle of this lake, wasn't getting a good response because there's just too much between the leader and the tippet. And so I just kind of sit it down and rode around the rest of the lake. Then I saw a bunch of fish. Yeah, bluegill. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm going to try to get that. I'm going to shorten my tippet. And tried that for about 45 minutes. Finally started catching them.
Was it awesome?
It was awesome. That was a good feeling. I really grew to like that rod after that too. Like it was a lot more responsive. And yeah, I just had to dial it in.
Yeah, because that's an upgrade for you.
It is.
On the fly rod.
Yeah.
So that's cool. Yeah, because I use the Reddington Zero reel. And then I use the Mystic fly rod for my it's actually a 4.5 weight.
Yeah.
But I love it.
Yeah.
It's just so much better than my Bass Pro rig that I won at the sales contest. You know? And I remember when I upgraded, I was like, man, that makes such a big difference.
Yep.
So that's cool, man. Now, did you rig up your kayak for fly fishing, or you still got to did you do any modifications on it at all?
No, it's still stock. Yeah.
Are you gonna? You think you might do some modifications on it, or?
I don't know. I'll see how the summer goes. I got it last year, and didn't do much modifications to it then either. I've got it's a fishing kayak, so it's really good for my spinner gear because I can just I got little fishing pole holders all over,
right?
And I've got one that kind of clips into a little peg joint that I was able to sit my fly rod in, and it just kind of clipped it in too, so it didn't want to bounce around or anything. So
right,
I have a couple of rails on each side. I might find another setup for that for my fly rod, so it's a little closer. I'm not having to lean and worry about getting tipsy.
Right. Well, there was someone on our podcast. I can't remember who it was, but I also follow him on Facebook or the Facebook.
Oh yes.
But he was talking about kayaking 6 miles out into the ocean.
Oh man.
And I'm like, are you kidding me? When I was growing up, grew up on the coast, so we would go offshore fishing every once in a while.
Yeah.
But we had a big boat,
Yep.
I've told the story of Sharknado on here before,
riding the tornadoes back to shore.
Right. Giddy up. No, but it was always kind of okay, you have to have a motor and everything because you never know what the weather can turn very quickly.
Yeah. You're only going about 2-3 mile an hour.
Yeah.
On those kayaks when you're paddling, even full tilt,
Or it's I don't know, because to me you get into a current or something, and
fighting that, yeah.
You're a very tiny part of the ocean at that point, like a grain of sand or something.
Yeah,
be thrown around. But 6 miles. I think he said the furthest he's gone out is 8 miles out.
Holy cow!
And I don't know if a boat's with them. But he said in groups, so I know it's more than one kayaker for safety reasons, but I don't know if I'd feel comfortable with that.
That would be a full day. I got no problem doing a full day of fishing, but I'm just saying paddling 4 hours out, doing how long you're fishing for, and 4 hours back, potentially.
Not only that, but the fish are huge out there.
Yeah.
all of a sudden you're in a kayak, and it's like, have you ever read Old Man in the Sea?
No.
You really should read that. But it's kind of
I'll wait for the movie.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a movie out there, but there's that's what it's about. I think that was the first time I was introduced to Hemingway was in that book.
All right.
And I was like, actually, I got it on tape when I was right out of college, and I'm like, Old Man in the Sea. Everyone talks about it. I'm gonna listen to it. That was amazing. So then I became a Hemingway addict. But are you a Hemingway fan, Bill, or you read much?
I do not. I do not read much.
Don't mean to put you on the spot.
Wow,
Bill.
This is awkward. Now everybody knows I'm illiterate. Thanks.
Well,
Northern Michigan education.
You're a musician / sound guy.
I can read music. That's something a lot of musicians can't do.
That's true. That's very true. Mm-hmm. And you know what's crazy is like a lot of musicians brag about it. I'm self-taught. I can't even read music. I don't need that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think it makes you a better musician.
Yeah. A little music theory is good for you too.
Yeah. Yeah, it is good. It is good. Well, this week we're talking to Landon Dekeyser from Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. And we actually, he's got a podcast called The Fishing Podcast. Mm-hmm. Have you listened to it at all?
I have not.
Don't mean to put you on the spot, Bill.
Gosh, you are just
good Lord,
pointing everything out this morning.
So, but we had that event at Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. Did you enjoy that event?
I did. That was a fun night.
That was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun with him and then Brian Kosminski and the boys from BHA, and made a lot of good connections with a lot of great people. So, Landon's podcast is a great podcast called The Fishing Podcast, and I've enjoyed a few episodes. And he doesn't just talk about fly fishing; he talks about all fishing.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. No. Different styles of fishing, mm-hmm. and but he is a fly angler for the most part. So, anyways, yeah. So it was good to talk to him, Bill.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Okay.
Pregnant pause.
Every episode should have some kind of awkward pregnant pause.
Oh, that was good.
Do you like that the timing's getting better?
That was really good.
Okay, and really with comedy, it's all about the timing.
It is. It's 100% timing.
So
a little delivery there too, but that was too long.
That was a little too long. Welcome to the podcast. Let's light the fire. But today on the Remote No Pressure podcast, we have Landon Dekeyser. Did I say that right? Dekeyser, is that right?
You did. Yep. That's about as good as it gets. I get all kinds of crazy different variations of Dekeyser. So yeah, that's perfect. Yeah.
If I had not lived in West Michigan for as long as I have, I probably would not pronounce it right either. But it's pretty commonplace to have a name like that around here.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it helps that there's Danny Dekeyser on the Red Wings, so people have actually heard it pronounced. No relation to Danny at all, but I get that question a lot. But I've noticed a lot of people know how to pronounce it correctly now. I think that's one of the reasons.
Well, that's awesome. So you didn't do like the what is it, that genetic testing to see if you guys may be related somehow? You haven't really dug into that too much.
No, I'm kind of afraid to do that at genetic testing. Not because of like I'm afraid of where my background or like my family history is, but the analytics and predictions they can make on like diseases and stuff you're gonna have.
Right.
I'd almost just rather not know. I think I'd rather go through life and not worry about it. If I knew I had a 90% chance of dying from cancer, I think I'd be paranoid about it all the time. But yeah, some people like that, I guess.
We did it with my wife. I got it for Valentine's Day, which is kind of but there's a story to that whole thing. But I got her genetic test for Valentine's Day, and we you can opt out of the health. Like you can say I don't want the health results or whatever. But then I'd imagine like at any point you could go back and say, okay, actually I do want to look at it. Yeah, absolutely. Or here's my thing. Big brother, we want to know as insurers, health insurance companies, what you're prone to or whatever. I don't know. That's my beef with it. But I got my wife. I tried it out on her first, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
I'm totally kidding.
Yeah, there's all kinds of crazy stuff we could talk about with the future of technology and healthcare and insurance. That might be a very weird and strange world compared to what we live in right now.
Yeah,
20,
for
20,
sure.
30 years from now.
For sure. Now you host the fishing podcast, which is a great podcast. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to bring you on here, Landon, is just to talk a little about your podcast and how you started and all of that. But your day job, you do computer analytics, is that right? Or sales?
No. So I'm in sales. I work for an IT company called Trace3 that is actually out of California. And I do sales for mostly data center hardware and services. So all the back end infrastructure that runs large companies, not so much the user facing things that you see in terms of what you're using on your laptop or desktop, but all the behind the scenes IT related hardware, servers, networking, equipment that makes all the magic happen for businesses to run like they do today. But I'm not the IT guy. I can barely figure out how to work my phone. I'm more so just technically, I'm in sales, but I really say I'm more so in communications, because my job is to talk to people and then to get them to talk to other people that can fix their problems. I'm not usually the one recommending solutions or anything like that.
Yeah. That in sales is a lot of communications. And speaking of communications, I mean, you're a busy guy. You have a wife, and you guys have a life. You had a lot going on. What made you decide to start the fishing podcast? What made you decide to do that?
Well, the reason that I really started it is because I love podcasts. I listen to podcasts all the time, business podcasts, and a lot of hunting podcasts. And, there's fishing podcasts out there already, but there just wasn't one that fit for me, So your podcast is great, and I listen to that, but it's mostly fly fishing related. And I like to fly fish, but I also like to spin fish and, saltwater fishing, freshwater fishing. I consider myself a multi-species angler and multi-tactic angler, and I'm always looking for new things to try, new places to go, and I like hearing about that type of stuff. So as I was listening to different podcasts, I couldn't find one that really catered to what I wanted to hear, and I was asking around to different friends that also listened to a lot of podcasts and a lot of fishing podcasts, and they couldn't really give me any one that had what I was looking for. So I just decided, you know what, I'll try my hand at starting a podcast, and it's been a whole lot of learning. With technology today, and you can do almost anything, but even with as easy it is and the technology that we have, it was still a pretty big learning curve. A little over 6 months. I don't know, when did I start it? September of last year. So I'm starting to get it figured out now, and it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. I've learned a ton about different types of fishing, different places, different tactics, and met a lot of really awesome people so far. So yeah, really, in a nutshell, I started the podcast to scratch my own itch, I guess.
Yeah, just seeing a hole there in the marketplace and filling that void. Yeah, because you're not, like you said, you're not just fly fishing, but you do a lot of spin fishing stuff. Are you into ice fishing at all or not?
Yeah, I mean, I've ice fished most of my life since I was a little kid. Last year, I actually did not ice fish one single time, which is probably the first time since I was, I don't know, maybe 10 years old or something that I didn't go ice fishing. And I still like to, I've got all the gear. It just, this winter was busy for me, and I also bought a drift boat. So any nice weekend we had, I would take that out. If it was mid 20s to mid 30s, that's warm enough for me to go out and steelhead fish still. So I spent a lot of time doing that instead of ice fishing. And then the other weekends where it was cold, it was like really cold, like 5 degrees.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It just didn't happen this year. But my freezer right now is pretty empty when it comes to fish. I kept one steelhead this year, and I think I've got 2 fillets of walleye in there. So I'm going to have to go out and do some fishing to put some meat back in the freezer, because I really do enjoy eating fish. I eat a lot of bluegill. I eat a lot of walleye. Usually keep a steelhead and a salmon each year. And that way I don't have to buy any fish. And if you don't go ice fishing, I've found that it's tougher to keep fish in the freezer.
Yeah, I actually, you said you did not ice fish one single time this year. I actually did ice fish one single time this year, and it was one single time too many. But it's good. It gets me out of the house. But
just not for you.
No, I try, and my kids are crawling off the walls in the middle of January, and I got to get them somewhere and get them doing something. But like you said, it was just such a cold winter. The weekends I did have available, we were hunkered down because it was so cold, so it's just kind of a weird year for that. But you're also on the board of BHA Michigan here, Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. How did that happen exactly, Landon?
So we got involved with those guys. I mean, I had heard about them, they're always talking about BHA on like the Meat Eater podcast, and I'd heard about them a few different times. And then my cousin and I, Dustin, at the time were running a really kind of a conservation charity. We were like a t-shirt and hat company, and then we were donating proceeds back to organizations like BHA. And Jason Meekoff had reached out to us at one point to get involved with something, and we donated some gear, and just kind of from there just kind of built a friendship with him and all the other guys that were on the board, and started doing more and more with them, and they had some spaces open up, and they asked us to jump on the board and help, and that's been a lot of fun. And man, that's another great organization if you want to meet people and learn things. Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, I mean, for those who don't know, to put it simply, they're the voice of public lands for hunters and anglers. So the whole goal is to keep public lands in public hands, so we can go out there and recreate on public lands and do the things that we enjoy. But one of the things that I have really found that's been beneficial to me being part of BHA is all the people that I meet. I went on an elk hunting trip last year, had no idea what I was doing, and had met a bunch of people that had done it through BHA. And we didn't get an elk, but we had a pretty successful hunt in terms of getting out there, having the right gear. Nothing went terribly wrong. Backpacking to the woods for 7 days and lived out of our backpacks. And it was a great time. And I don't think I would have been able to do that as easily without the people that I met and could just give a call to and say, hey, how do I do this? What kind of gear do I need for this? What do you recommend here? And that goes for fishing as well. I've met a lot of really cool people through BHA. That's how I met Brian Kosminski, and consider him a good friend, and have fished with him a couple times. And he's taught me a lot of things about mousing. We're going to do some hex fishing this year. So yeah, awesome organization for learning about new outdoor activities as well.
Now you grew up here in Michigan, am I right?
Yep. Almost my entire life. There were 2, I don't even know if it was 2 full years, but a very short period of time I lived down in Dayton, Ohio. And let's just say I'm really happy that I ended up back here in Michigan. My dad had moved down there for work. Sorry, Ohio people, but you've got bigger bucks than we do down there, but our fishing's far better in my opinion.
Yeah.
And that's what I love to do, and Michigan's a great place for it. And yeah, I originally grew up, was born in St. Agnes, Michigan, which for the people that don't know where that is, that's as soon as you get across the Mackinac Bridge, you're in St. Agnes. So that small town there, really more of a tourist trap than a town. Most of the businesses are heavily dependent on tourism all year, from snowmobiling to, people going to Mackinac Island and buying fudge in the summertime. Awesome, beautiful place up there. But my parents moved down to Coldwater, Michigan when I was, I think, 7 or 8, somewhere in that range. And that's where I spent most of my life as, childhood, at least, until I was 18 and went off to college. So spent a lot of time bass fishing and pike fishing and ice fishing down there. And then lived in Kalamazoo, and now I live actually just north of Greenville. So lived in some cool places in Michigan and had a lot of different experiences in all the different places I've went fishing wise too. So it's been fun. I love Michigan. There's those couple months in the winter where we ask ourselves what we're doing here. But then the weather comes around like it is right now, and you got to remind yourself in those couple months in the wintertime that, hey, May's coming, and June, July, August, all the way through fall. There's no better place to be than Michigan.
Bill.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy sustainability? Do you appreciate sustainability?
I do.
Do you appreciate high quality fly fishing gear that's made in America, helping small businesses?
It's debatable. and some made in China, but I mean, no.
No, there goes our sponsorship, Bill. Thank you very much. No, but this part of our podcast is brought to you by our friends at Deli Fresh Design at delifreshdesign.com. I swear by my sling pack. My wife has a sling pack. She only goes fly fishing a couple times a year. We also have the beer koozies, all made out of recycled waders. Yep. And they're just great, high quality products. Mm-hmm. So if you go to delifreshdesign.com and type in RNP20 at checkout, you'll get 20% off your order.
Awesome.
Bill.
Yes.
Do you like coffee?
Sometimes.
Do you like high quality coffee roasted in America? Helping to support local business?
I actually do.
You're killing me, Bill. I'm trying to set you up for a joke.
Not so much.
Not so much.
I like the just add water type.
I like the instant coffee. No, if you know me or if you know Bill, we don't drink instant coffee. Well, there's a couple that we drink.
Yeah,
when we're
just
when
in
we're
the woods.
camping. Yeah, but for the most part, we're not instant coffee.
No,
not quite coffee snobs. I'm not, anyways. Are you a coffee snob?
No.
Not quite.
There are times I like really good coffee. I'll pay a premium for barista style coffee, but it's usually just I'll drink whatever.
Yeah, but there's the good quality coffee. There's a difference. Mm-hmm. And that's why we love Sandhill Coffee, our other sponsor.
That's right.
If you check out sandhillcoffee.com and you can say, oh, well, that's a little pricier because I have to pay for shipping or I don't know about that. What Phil's doing is for their first time order, if you type in outside 19, that's outside 19, you're going to get 20% off your first order with Sandhill Coffee.
That is awesome.
Yeah, so super thanks to our sponsors, Deli Fresh Design and Sandhill Coffee. And let's get back to the podcast. Yeah, it's usually a couple days after Christmas, and I'm like, what am I doing here? And, until spring break, basically, or until Memorial Day.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, my gosh. So what kind of work were your parents into? What line of work did they do?
Well, my mom was actually a stay-at-home mom. And that was definitely a full-time job because there were 4 of us. And then my dad's a corrections officer for the prison system and has worked there my entire life. So that's he also worked a part-time job on the side too that I really helped him run. Growing up as a teenager and even a young adult, we put in docks and boat hoists in the spring and took them out in the fall for all the different lakes because there's a lot of lakes in Coldwater, a couple big chains, and a lot of people come up from Ohio and Chicago, Indiana, and have their summer cottages, so they call them. Some of them are, a couple $1 million houses on the lake. But yeah, I grew up helping him do that too. So my dad worked a lot, but he somehow always had time to still take us fishing and hunting and spend a lot of time with us. Honestly, I don't know how he did it looking back. I don't have any kids right now. And the amount of time that he worked and then the amount of things we still got to go out and do almost doesn't make sense. It doesn't seem possible.
Right. So as far as your dad taking you, did that have a real impact on you in the outdoors? Is that kind of what birthed that love for the outdoors?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely what I would say, ignited the fire. But everybody in my family on my mom's side and dad's side are big outdoors, all the guys at least, and some of the women even too. But I don't, even if my dad didn't hunt and fish, I think I would have probably still been exposed to it at an early age. And my dad grew up hunting and fishing as well and loves it. But I think he learned pretty quickly that my obsession for fishing especially was a little bit abnormal. I don't remember, you might not remember, there used to be some video games called, it was a Bassmaster video games, and I had them for computer, and they had like pro tips on there, and they had like Kevin Van Dam and Denny Bauer, and they would just give different tips for different times, and I would just watch all these videos over and over and over again. And there was a few of them that I would like use as excuses, because sometimes my dad would be like, "No, I'm not going fishing today. It's raining." And then I would quote a video where it said something like, "Rain, especially in the summer, can be an angler's best friend." And he loved to fish, but man, I drove him nuts. I probably asked him to take me fishing pretty much every single day. And I, that's all I did growing up. Me and my friends would ride around from one bridge to the next, pulling a wagon with, our tackle boxes and a couple fishing poles in them with our bikes. And then, probably when I was about, 13, we had a small John boat, a 12-foot boat, and had a little 3-horse Johnson motor on it that, has to be 1950s. And I'd finally talked my mom into dropping me off at the lake and then just picking me up at night. And I just brought food out there, and I'd stay out there all day by myself and fish if my dad couldn't go or one of my friends couldn't go with me. And she'd pull me down to the lake, and then I'd have to back the boat in because she couldn't back the trailer up. And I'd stay out there and fish all day. And that's all I ever wanted to do as a kid. When I was a kid, I thought I'd be a professional bass fisherman. That didn't work out. I never had a bass boat, so that kind of made it tough to get into tournaments. Sure.
12-foot John boat doesn't fit well with all those Ranger boats.
Yeah, you get beat to every spot every time. But those guys actually work their butts off too, is what I learned. That's a tough job. One, you have to be extremely good, and two, man, they're on the road 250 days a year.
Wow.
And, I don't know how you have a wife or even a relationship at all and spend that much time on the road. It'd be tough.
Right.
So yeah, that didn't work out. So now I do IT sales and have a podcast so I can talk about fishing.
Well, my question to you, do you have a pretty addictive personality?
When it comes to my fishing hobbies and hunting hobbies, yeah. When I get into something, it's, I'm all in. When I started to feel, I can't talk. I'm tired from traveling today, man. When I started steelhead fishing, it was, I went out one time and caught a steelhead, and for about the last 5-6 years, that's all I think about from, as soon as deer hunting gets over until trout season opens, that's really all I do is steelhead fish. And in the wintertime, I go almost every single weekend if we don't have plans. And then as soon as you get the longer days and we get the time change, I'll fish 4 days a week typically. I go at least a couple days after work, sometimes 3 or 4. I really have to be thankful for the understanding wife that I have. We don't have any kids yet. I'm sure that will all completely change.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so as soon as I get into something new, it's my wife calls it an obsession, but I think that's kind of a bad word because people, I don't know, people think an obsession is like bad for some reason, but I like the word passion.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm very passionate about the different hobbies I get into, and I spend a lot of time and money on them.
Now, is your mom?
But as far as go ahead.
No, is your mom or dad like? Do they have the same tendencies when they get involved in something? They're all in, or is that kind of unique to Landon?
No, I'm a little bit different in that sense, I would say. My parents were, compared to us millennials, because I fall into that age range still, I guess, they were very much of the mindset you have kids, you take care of them, you work hard, and you have fun when you get the chance. But that's not what life's all about, and I think that's even more so how their parents were. It was in their generation, people worked, and they worked a lot, and fun was just kind of an afterthought. And like I said earlier, we still managed to do quite a bit and have a lot of fun. But I definitely have taken a little bit different route. My parents, they wanted to have kids, and they had kids when they were young. I think my mom was 20 when she had me. And I'll be turning 30 here next month. And kids aren't quite on my radar yet because, I saw what my parents had to do and how hard it was to raise 4 kids when they were that young. And there were definitely struggles in their life, and they didn't get to go out and do a lot of things that I'm sure that they wanted to do. So thinking back to your question, do they have that same obsession? And at first I said no, but as I've talked through this, maybe they did. And theirs was just on having a family.
Right. What do you think changed? I mean, I'm a Gen Xer, I'm a Generation Xer, so I'm kind of between the two generations. And, I fight that urge to work way too much and not have enough fun. It's hard for me to relax and that kind of thing. But what do you think changed? What do you think changed between their generation and like our grandparents' generation and your generation? What do you think it is that do you think it's because you saw that sacrifice they made and you're like, that's really hard, I want to make sure? I mean, what was it you think?
That's a good question. I've thought about that a lot. And some of it was that, I like to fish so much, and if I don't go fishing for 2 weeks, I'm about to like die. I'm literally addicted to it. I'm in a bad mood. My wife will even be like, you need to go fishing or something because I can't stand you anymore. But I saw the things that I love to do, and there's just no way I could have the time if I lived the same lifestyle that they did back then. But I mean, I think it's just something that's been slowly changing over, even the past maybe 100, 150 years, comparing, my grandparents to my parents and then my parents to myself. I would say people don't work as hard in general. And some people view that as a bad thing, but I really don't think it is. We all are only going to live one life, and people don't ever regret the things they did. Maybe not ever, but in general, you don't hear about people regretting all the things that they did in their life. They regret the things that they didn't do. Mm-hmm. And I think just with media in general, and then especially social media coming into things, my generation and even the younger generations are so aware of all that the world has to offer and all these different experiences that you can have and places you can go and these adventures that we can be a part of, that it's been in front of us our whole life. We grew up watching the Travel Channel and the Discovery Channel, and at least that's what I grew up. That's what I liked to watch when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. And the Outdoor Channel, and all of this stuff has had so much impact on our generation that we realize if we really want to go and experience all these things that we've dreamed about and we've watched on TV and we see people posting about online, you do have to figure out a way to have more of a work life and home life, or fun life balance. Mm-hmm. And you got the older generations that look down at us and kind of think, well, they don't know how to work hard, but you can always work hard. You can always make a lot of money. Obviously you need a good job and you need to be able to have money to go do these things as well. So that's important, but I don't know. I think it's just been, like I said, that awareness of what's out there and what you can do that, and honestly, like, the economy is still thriving. You have more millennials in the workforce right now than any generation. And things are still going up. Things are still advancing. And something I think about all the time is we've created all this technology, and, even go back to only as far back as the Industrial Revolution. And, they created these machines back then to take the workload off of the people. And we've somehow found a way to continue to automate things and continue to create better technology, make things more efficient. And yet we still work 40 hours a week, 60 hours a week. I do work more than 40 hours a week still. I'm just sitting behind a computer or, emailing from my phone at 8:00 at night while I'm watching TV. So it's just different today, I guess.
Yeah. I think millennials get a lot of crap too. I think a lot of people misjudge and mischaracterize millennials as a group because of one person or whatever, but
sure.
But I think, I don't know. I mean, have you ever been to the Air Zoo down in Kalamazoo?
You know what? I lived there for 6 years and I never went to the Air Zoo.
Well, I would never go there unless I have kids, So I took my kids there one year on spring break. We did like a staycation where we did a bunch of stuff in West Michigan, and we went to the Air Zoo, and so we went to the Air Zoo, and it was like these planes that are built by baby boomers and the generation before them, and like there were no computers involved. They drew these things by hand. There was no AutoCAD. They had to know how to make these things. There were no computers. And it blew my mind. I'm standing there looking at these jets. That there's one there. It's like a black one, and it goes faster than the speed of sound, and it can't be picked up on radars or anything. And this was built in the 50s. And I'm like
a SR-71 or something like that.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know the name of it. I could say, yeah, that's something like that, but I don't really know. But and I'm like, holy crap! Like, these were built by hand. They were built out of steel, that was probably forged somewhere in Detroit or somewhere in Michigan or whatever. And they built these things by hand and with their brain. You had to know displacement theories. You had to know physics. It's not you had to know these formulas. You couldn't just rely on your computer to get them, And we've seen this we've seen.
It's insane.
It is crazy to think about, and we've had this huge advancement in technology, and you think like people wouldn't have to work as many hours because we have technology. So 40-hour work week. Let's just say for an accountant or something like that who used to have to freaking write out 2 + 2, 4 - Q, whatever. Is now it's a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
But instead, we're still working the same amount of hours. So what are we doing? So like,
I don't
did
know.
the quantity of
That's what I'm saying.
Did the quantity of work go up and the quality is the same? I don't know. I digress.
There's just more work to be managed, I guess.
I guess. But anyway,
we should be working 10 hours a week and fishing for those other 30.
If we can pull that off and not let our wives know, that might work. If we can get paid for just kidding, totally kidding. But anyways, well, tell us where, if we wanted to find out more about your podcast and more about you, how would we do that, Landon?
Well, it's super easy. I somehow got lucky, and when I was thinking of names for the podcast, I wanted to think of something creative and catchy, and something that would stick in people's minds. But also, I saw that the fishing podcast was not taken, and that is very direct, and it's hard for anybody to misunderstand what that podcast might be about.
Yes.
And the domain name was open as well, so that was just kind of a no-brainer. So if you Google the fishing podcast or go to thefishingpodcast.com, that will direct you to. It's a pretty simple website. It really is just a place to post all of the episodes. So you can go there. There is an About Me link, but if people want to get in touch with me and they want to chat with me, ask me questions, or just follow me on social media, the best places for that are on Facebook and Instagram. I would say I'm most active on Instagram because that has the least amount of drama on it today. If they give me a follow on there, reach out to me via message or whatnot. I always get back within usually a day or so, as long as I'm in an area that has cell phone service. Sometimes I'm not on the weekends, and that's really easy to find too. Just search the fishing podcast and it should pop right up.
Sweet. Well, we'll put your links up there to your podcast and to your website. And thank you so much for hanging out with us, Landon. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have to get out and go fishing sometime soon, man. They're not too far apart.
Bill, what'd you think of the podcast?
That was pretty good.
It's always cool to talk to other anglers, but also, Landon doesn't live too far from here.
That's right.
So it's also cool to do someone local, to have them on. So couple things. We do really appreciate all of your, what are they called, Bill? When they go online? It's
reviews?
Not a recommendation. It's a
review.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all for your reviews. Be sure to go on there. And the reason why we always talk about that is because the more reviews we have, whenever someone types in Fly Fishing Podcast, it helps to have more reviews.
That's right.
So we really appreciate your reviews, except for your 1-star reviews, which I always say, look, we're better than that. You know that. No, I'm totally kidding. No, give us a 2. Give us a 2. No, for real though, we really appreciate them, and we really appreciate it. So whatever platform you're listening to, iTunes, I think we're on iHeartRadio, but all of whatever platform that you're listening to, go and leave us a review. We'll greatly appreciate it.
Yeah.
Also, if you're a content creator, and I know I've gotten a couple emails from people, we're always looking for great content. And if you would like to be part of the R&P team, we'd love to have you on board. So be sure to email me, jefft@remotenopressure.com. And until next time, go fishing.